The War in Asia and Africa. The war in Asia and Africa during World War II was a global conflict that had a significant impact on the people and nations of these regions. The war was fought between the Axis powers, led by Japan, Germany, and Italy, and the Allied powers, led by the United States, Great Britain, and the Soviet Union. In Asia, Japan had been expanding its empire since the early 20th century, and by the start of World War II, it had control over much of China, Southeast Asia, and the Pacific Islands. The Japanese army was notorious for the rape of Nanking and other war crimes, while the US dropped atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, killing over 200,000 people. The war in Asia and Africa had a profound impact on the people and nations of these regions. Millions of people were killed, and entire cities were destroyed. The war changed the political, economic, and social landscape of these regions, and its effects are still felt today. The role of the United States and Japan in the war in the Pacific. The Pacific Theater was one of the most significant and dramatic theaters of the war, with the United States and its allies facing off against Japan and its allies. The Battle of Midway in June 1942 was a decisive victory for the United States and marked a turning point in the war in the Pacific. Japan had planned to invade Midway Island, a strategic location in the Central Pacific, as a way to lure the American fleet into a trap. However, the United States was able to intercept and decode Japanese plans, and launched a surprise attack on the Japanese fleet. The battle resulted in the destruction of 4 Japanese aircraft carriers and marked the end of Japan's strategic initiative in the Pacific. This campaign was a key factor in the eventual defeat of Japan. The Battle of Okinawa was one of the last major battles of the Pacific Theater. It was fought in April to June 1945 and was the largest amphibious assault in the Pacific War. The battle was characterized by intense fighting between the United States and Japan, with both sides suffering heavy casualties. The battles and campaigns fought in the Pacific were characterized by intense and brutal fighting, with both sides suffering heavy casualties. The events leading up to the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and Japan's surrender on August 15, 1945. The Pacific Theater was one of the most significant and dramatic theaters of the war, with the United States and Japan as the main players. Today, we will be discussing the events that led to the United States and Japan entering the war, their strategies and tactics, and the impact of their actions on the outcome of the war. The United States entered the war after the surprise attack on Pearl Harbor by Japan on December 7, 1941. The attack resulted in the deaths of over 2,000 Americans and the destruction of much of the American Pacific Fleet. The United States declared war on Japan the next day and subsequently entered World War II. Japan's decision to enter the war was driven by a desire to expand their empire and secure resources, particularly oil. Japan's military strategy was based on a decisive battle doctrine, which called for a large-scale naval battle to destroy the enemy's fleet and gain control of the Pacific. This strategy ultimately led to the Battle of Midway, which was a decisive defeat for Japan and marked the turning point of the war in the Pacific. The United States strategy in the Pacific was based on an island-hopping campaign. The Americans bypassed heavily defended Japanese-held islands and instead focused on capturing more strategically important islands. This allowed them to gain control of important airfields and naval bases, which were used to launch further attacks on Japan. This campaign was a key factor in the eventual defeat of Japan. The impact of the United States and Japan's actions in the Pacific Theater was significant. Japan's defeat in the Battle of Midway marked the end of their strategic initiative in the Pacific, and the United States island-hopping campaign led to the eventual defeat of Japan. The war in the Pacific resulted in heavy casualties for both sides, with over 200,000 Japanese and over 50,000 Americans losing their lives. In conclusion, the Pacific theater was a significant and dramatic theater of the war. The United States and Japan were the main players in the war in the Pacific, with their actions having a significant impact on the outcome of the war. Japan's defeat marked the end of their empire, and the United States emerged victorious, solidifying its position as a world power. The key events and outcomes of World War II. World War II was a global war that lasted from 1939 to 1945. It was the deadliest and most widespread conflict in history, with an estimated 50 million to 85 million fatalities worldwide. The war involved the majority of the world's nations, including all of the great powers, organized into two opposing military alliances, the Allies and the Axis. The war began with the German invasion of Poland in September 1939, and quickly spread as Germany conquered much of Europe. In 1941, Germany invaded the Soviet Union, and Japan attacked the United States at Pearl Harbor, drawing the United States into the war. The war in Europe ended on May 8, 1945, with Germany's surrender, and the war in the Pacific ended on September 2, 1945, with Japan's surrender after atomic bombs were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The war's impact on the world and its ongoing significance today. The impact of World War II on the world was far-reaching and long-lasting. The war resulted in the deaths of millions of people and caused widespread destruction and displacement. The war also led to significant political changes, including the formation of the United Nations and the rise of the United States and Soviet Union as superpowers. This led to a shift in the balance of power and the creation of a bipolar world. The war also marked the end of colonial empires and the decolonization and independence of many countries in Asia and Africa. This had a significant impact on the world, as it led to the emergence of new nations and a shift in the balance of power. The use of atomic weapons during the war also had a significant impact on the world and its ongoing significance today. The bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki marked the first and only use of nuclear weapons in warfare and demonstrated the destructive power of these weapons. This led to a new era of nuclear deterrence and arms control and continues to shape international relations and military strategy today. In addition, the war led to the displacement of millions of people and the reconstruction of Europe and Japan, which had a lasting impact on the world economy and international relations. Overall, World War II had a profound impact on the world and its ongoing significance today. The war resulted in significant political, economic, and social changes that continue to shape the world today. It is a crucial period in history that continues to be studied, debated, and remembered. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell for more historical content.